Hey Eagles fans, this is Mike Kaye from NJ Advanced Media. Welcome to the No Huddle Show podcast, where we discuss anything and everything Philadelphia Eagles. You can read our content on NJ.com/Eagles, bookmark that, and you can subscribe to our exclusive Eagles Insider text service, where we'll break news, give you insider observations, and provide in-depth analysis. Through Eagles Extra, you can send questions and comments directly to us, and we'll respond to your phone. With me today, as always, is my fellow Eagles beat reporter, Chris Franklin. Today we're going to discuss the Eagles injury reinforcements, the NFC East division race, the NFL trade deadline, and we'll preview the Week 8 matchup against the Dallas Cowboys. Chris, how are you doing today?
Hey, Mike, I'm doing well. Not too bad. It's Cowboys week. You know, everybody around this area looks forward to that, and looking forward to breaking down with you. How are you doing?
I'm well, man. I can't really complain. I wish I could. It's been an interesting week. It was nice to have that mini bye. I got to R&R a little bit with my son and my wife, and we went to. Oh my God, I already forgot what we did this weekend. That's not good. Oh, we went to an animal preserve, and he chilled with a bunch of birds, but obviously with cages around them. Yeah, so that was cool. You got to cover your first night game on the beat in person against the Giants. You're getting a second heaping helping at the Link this week with the Cowboys. What did you take away from covering a game at night? The atmosphere, obviously there weren't fans in the stands, but how much different did you feel kind of covering the game at night as opposed to the 1 o'clock starts?
Well, I will say this: it's a lot later. You have to work. I will say that it definitely is. It's a unique perspective, and you mentioned the fans, and I think with the night game, I think it does bring a little bit of extra energy, even though it was about 4,000, 5,000, 4,700, 5,000 people in those stands. You still could hear them. You still hear, especially in front of us in the press box. They were loud and vocal as they were, and I think the biggest takeaway was that I didn't get finished. I think I saw we were texting late 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, still going, getting that stuff ready and getting it adapted to that. It's actually kind of fun, actually working that late. And I'm weird like that, but it's actually fun kind of working that late and go in and breaking down the Eagles and everything like that. So it was a unique perspective, I mean, how do you do it for this long? I mean, how are you able to go ahead and do, especially all these night games with you, the Eagles, and then the Jags before? How are you able to continually do this, man?
Well, what's funny is you bring up the Jags. They only ever were on national television either in the playoffs or on Thursday Night Football because they're such a small market team and the level of interest nationally isn't there. So they used to do an annual Titans Jaguars get it out of the way Thursday Night Football game, and so that was your only exposure to that, and that was a lot of fun. And I always used to say, man, I can't wait to cover a good team because then I'll be in the spot, I'll be able to do that and have that atmosphere pretty regularly. And then you come to Philly and it's there's 5 night games a year, and you're just kind of tired, man, because a lot of them hit you back to back, it's going to happen with the Giants and the Cowboys this week. Luckily, there was a Thursday night football game and then a Sunday night football game, and then there's a bye, so it's not you're because the NFL season is a marathon. I'm not trying to act like we're out on the field and tired and stuff, but from a writing perspective and just an overall creative turnaround perspective, it can sometimes be pretty rough. We've been lucky to have both of these night games at home. So, and for the 49ers game, we didn't travel because of, they were on the New Jersey no travel list. So we've kind of lucked out this year. Typically, it's much more of a grind. I remember Thursday Night Football, the Packers, to give you guys a little bit of inside info, I think the game ended at 11 o'clock Central Time, and I had a flight at 6:30 in the morning. And when you stay when the Eagles play the Packers, you typically can't get a hotel in Green Bay. You have to stay in Appleton, Wisconsin, which is 30 minutes away from Green Bay. So you've got to go back to the hotel. You've got to write for 2 hours, maybe sleep for an hour, and then you're driving back because you want to get back in time for the noon press conference or be able to cover it. So and direct flights to and from Green Bay or Appleton are not very convenient. So, yeah, I mean, look, it could be much worse. We cover football for a living. It's a rush in the moment, but sometimes you get really exhausted, especially when you come home and your wife's working late and you just got home and you've got to watch your kid until she gets home and do, I mean, it's a lot. But you know what? It's fun. It's very cool that we cover a team that has so much national interest and so much international interest. And, that's the small price you pay. So, I don't want to sound ungrateful. It's a great opportunity and it's fun to go through that, especially after covering the Jaguars where, they were known more for losing than winning. But anyway, on that note, I think when we look at this Eagles team moving forward, as my dog decides to soften his pillow up randomly in the middle of the show on my kid's bed, like my kid's couch bed, anyway, that he's made his own. I think we've got to talk about what's happening now, right? So the Eagles started practice. We're recording this on Thursday. The Eagles started practicing Wednesday. Some notable returns. Malik Jackson was at practice. He missed the previous game. Jalen Reagor, who's on IR, had his 21-day window activated. He was back. Looked really strong catching the football and fielding punts. TJ Edwards, the linebacker, has been out for the last 3 games on injured reserve. Rudy Ford, special teams ace. And then Dallas Goedert, who's missed the past 4 games, he was out there too. Jason Peters is back. They're getting all the guys. Excuse this sound. I'm moving my desk a little bit, but there's the cavalry is coming. You know what I mean? They're getting healthy at the right time. Darius Slay yesterday said, I think it was Darius Slay, right? Or no, it was Jalen Mills. Jalen Mills said that, you never want anybody to get injured, but selfishly, if you do have a lot of injuries, you want those to happen earlier on the season so you can get a bunch of guys back. We knew that injuries were going to come with this COVID era just because they didn't get a full rev up period with training camp and the offseason and everything. But now it the second half of the season, if guys can stay healthy, obviously Deshaun Jackson's going to be out for a while. Zach Ertz is going to be out for a while. They have a decent amount of return here. Who are 2 or 3 of the biggest returns that you think will help this group immediately? Maybe not week 8 against the Cowboys, but immediately after the bye.
I think the one guy is Dallas Goedert. I think the way that he was playing before he got injured with that fractured ankle, I think he was playing very well. So much so I think he usurped Zach Ertz as the primary tight end on his team. And the way he's able to go ahead and basically when he command the seams, go ahead across the middle and get those matchups against those mismatches against linebackers and the safeties, that's huge. And we've seen how much, even with his absence, Carson Wentz likes to target the tight ends. I mean, Richard Rodgers has played well instead, not to put anything down on Richard Rodgers, but he's been playing well and actually performing at a high level. So the fact if you get back Goedert and you go ahead and have Rodgers, I think that's huge. I think the other guy that I probably would say have to, and this is going to be out in left field, I know, but Rudy Ford. I think a lot of times you see when you have these special teams guys that are really quiet, he's definitely impacts the kick coverage game, which in turns averages basically definitely helps the field position game. I think when you go ahead and you look at what the Eagles have done well is when they're not go ahead constantly starting at the 35 to 40, 45, and even in their own territories after turnovers, this defense actually does decently. It does a decent job when it comes to that stuff. So when you have a coverage guy, you get more help coming to the special teams. You can start. It's a domino effect. It helps your defense, which in turn helps your offense, and then the cycle just completes itself. So I think Rudy Ford's definitely going to be another guy that's going to be great to see coming back.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think any upgrade anywhere can help this team, right? I mean, this is a team that's kind of straggled along here. They're leading the division at 2-4-1. They've got a good outlook for the next 2 games. They're playing the Cowboys, who have struggled at 2-5, and the Giants, who apparently just had somebody test positive for COVID, and they're 1-6. So they enter the bye. If they can win this game against the Cowboys, they're set up for a second half turnaround. There's a lot of talk about Jason Peters. Jason Peters on Wednesday lined up at left tackle with Jordan Mailata lining up at right tackle. That got a lot of negativity. It should be noted that Lane Johnson was not at practice. Jack Driscoll was watching practice, injured. I actually think it's the right move if you're going to do this from an immediate standpoint. Jordan Mailata played right tackle a lot throughout the summer. It's a position that they've cross-trained him at for 2 years. When Lane Johnson comes back, if they feel that Jason Peters is good enough to play at left tackle, Mailata could potentially be a swing tackle. If they realize that Lane Johnson's injury could be prolonged or Jack Driscoll's out for a little while, they'll have the versatility to play at right tackle, because Matt Pryor, frankly, cannot play outside. He's just not a guy who's athletic enough to block the edge. So they'd much rather have him at guard. I know there's been talk about moving Jason Peters in at right guard. I would agree with that if Lane Johnson was fully healthy, but he's not. And I think the way you look at it is, let's say that, Lane Johnson's out on Sunday night, right? And you've got Jason Peters, who is kind of a 50-50 chance of completing a game. Well, here's the thing. If Jason Peters goes down, you can always move Jordan Mailata to left tackle. If Matt Pryor is struggling at right tackle, you can't put in Jason Peters at right tackle, and you don't want to move Jordan Mailata to right tackle in the middle of a game just so you can insert Jason Peters at left tackle, who might already be playing guard. So it allows you to not have to move around 3 spots, essentially. So what's your take on the usage of Jason Peters?
See, I disagree with you on here, and this is one of the rare times, especially when it comes to a veteran and a younger guy, that I actually think Mailata should go ahead and remain in there at the left tackle spot. I think he's played well, with the exception of last week against the Giants. I think Leonard Williams got the best of him. But I think when you go ahead and go against teams like the Ravens and the Steelers, you only gave up 2 sacks in those games, and you're going ahead and you're playing well, and with his mobility, I think you'd rather go ahead and stay in there and keep him in there. And unfortunately, it seems like with Jason Peters, he had a great career here. He really did at left tackle. But the one thing we constantly see is there's 2 things we constantly see with Jason Peters. He's going to cost you five yards a game, pretty much. The weekly Jason Peters false start penalty, and you can't have that on the end when it comes to there. The second thing is he always has to leave for, it seems like, a good chunk of plays during the game because something's ailing him. And don't get me wrong, you can't fault anybody who has a heart and determination that wants to try to come back and play a game. But when it starts to become a detriment to the team at times, and you have to have guys running in and out, and they can't get a true flow of going ahead and playing there, it gets really tough. And I mean, don't you see, especially with Jason Peters, like constantly having off the field, you still want to go ahead, you still want to put him in there in that spot to go ahead and basically, you're probably may have to see Mailata in there at one point. You still want to go with that?
Yeah, because here's the thing. Jordan Mailata's played the left tackle position the last 3 weeks. He's fine. He's comfortable there, right? You don't want to have to, if Matt Pryor gets injured, have to move Jordan Mailata over to right tackle. You'd rather move Jordan Mailata from right tackle to left tackle if Jason Peters were to be out. That's why they're prepping him. To me, there's logical sense in that, and saying, well, you know what? Jordan Mailata's younger. He's had the experience in the summer of playing on the right side. Realistically, he should be the swing tackle in a best case scenario. If Lane Johnson and Jack Driscoll are out, your only other option is Brett Toth, who has played 4 snaps. So I think their logic there is, as opposed to putting Matt Pryor out there, who will be beat like a drum by DeMarcus Lawrence, they are putting Jordan Mailata against the best defensive end on the Cowboys. And look, the Cowboys are all edge rushers. Aldon Smith, DeMarcus Lawrence, and Randy Gregory. you've got to be able to win on the edge. And so the logic there is you have your best two players playing the tackle positions. Jason Peters is an older player. Moving him to right tackle is not the right move, in my opinion. That said, the alternative would be to move Jason Peters to left guard, keep Nate Herbig at right guard, and then you have Matt Pryor at right tackle. I don't really like that right side of the line against DeMarcus Lawrence. So I get the logic for this 1 week. I don't really I think you have to reevaluate afterwards. But if you don't have Lane Johnson, I think this makes actually a lot of sense. I also think Jordan Mailata's body type and his entire game kind of fits better as a right tackle than a left tackle. He's a pretty good run blocker, in my opinion. He's also really dangerous on screens, and we know that most screens typically go to the right side for the Eagles. So I don't know. I get the blowback. Believe me, I do, but I understand the logic here, if that makes sense. Like, I get what they're trying to do. I also think Jeff Stoutland, who is making a lot of these decisions as the run game coordinator with Doug Peterson, has earned that trust from observers. I think that Jeff Stoutland is without a doubt the most important assistant coach on this team, if not the entire division, if not the entire conference. What he's been able to do with this group of, like, this turnstile of offensive linemen is pretty incredible. There were guys that I spoke to in the league that thought Jack Driscoll was severely overdrafted. He's looked very competent and had to start week 1 as a rookie on a last minute notice. I think when you look at what Nate Herbig's done is moving back and forth, when he was cross-trained at center, he was trained at center essentially his entire rookie year, and then they brought him back to using him at guard. I think you look at, Jamon Brown's maybe the one major blemish, right? Matt Pryor hasn't played well, but at least he knows the position. He's played relatively, like, passable. But it's a constant struggle for this offensive line. I just think, like, they're very big believers in moving guys around. I think when you look at Jordan Mailata, he's so new that moving him, similar to Herbig, is not going to hurt his development. It's not going to hurt you from an offensive line standpoint, at least from a development standpoint. And so I think this is them kind of flexing their foresight, right? Look, if Jason Peters goes down, you can easily move Jordan Mailata to left tackle. But let me ask you this. If Matt Pryor is sucking up the joint, would you rather have the option of Brett Toth as his replacement or Jordan Mailata? If you say Toth, you boxed
me in a corner. Oh,
yeah. If you said Toth, you're lying to yourself. But here's the thing. You're not just gonna. Here's the thing. If you move over Mailata to right tackle, then you're moving Jason Peters, who's either one of the guard positions, over to left tackle, and then you're moving Matt Pryor over. So you're moving 3 guys around. It doesn't make. There's no logical sense. So if you're
I have no problem with this for this week. I have no problem. I'm looking down.
Yeah.
Term, and that's where I have. I'm really worried about that.
If Jason Peters is the starting left tackle by week 11, you're going to have me ranting and raving on this thing, similar to how I ranted and raved about Alshon Jeffrey.
Who should stay?
But I think, but here's the thing. I think that for this week, first off, Jason Peters is coming off an injury. You might as well put him at the place that he's most comfortable at. It's been 2 months, it's been 6 weeks since he played right guard. So to just shove him back in there when we've never seen him actually play in a game at right guard doesn't make a ton of sense, especially when you're facing a team with nothing but edge rushers. Jordan Mailata, we've seen play right tackle. Again, I think his body type, all of his attributes make him a solid right tackle. The only reason why he's not been worked at right tackle so much is because they're never going to move Lane Johnson to left tackle. Let's get that out of the way. He is never going to play left tackle in the league. He wants to play right tackle. He's the best right tackle in football. You keep him there. You don't make 2 positions worse by moving Lane Johnson to left tackle. It's just not a move after all this time. Now, Jordan Mailata is important. Okay. Now that you know he can play in the league, because he definitely can play in the league, you've also got to see if he can play both positions as a swing tackle, because if he loses a battle next year to Andre Dillard, or they decide to draft another left tackle next year and they have him compete, you've got to know that he can do it, because frankly, I think Jack Driscoll is more of a right tackle, right guard, or a left guard. I don't think he's a left tackle. And right now he's listed as their swing tackle. And I don't think that that's good. Granted, Andre Dillard's out for the year. But anyway, that's my rant there. Let's talk about Jalen Reagor, because I think there's this consensus that amongst fans where they shouldn't rush him back, but they're also super excited about how quickly he's been healing. From your perspective, do you think that they should hold him out of this game? I know we got to see him in practice a little bit and he looked good, but just the fact that the guy's already suffered 2 injuries in 6 weeks, no matter how you recover, that's terrific. But if you're constantly injured, it doesn't matter how quickly you recover if you're missing 3 weeks at a time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And the one thing, if I think it is a little concerning. I mean, he's a rookie and he's already had those 2 injuries, one to the shoulder and then one to the thumb that he has. And it does worry me a little bit. It sort of reminds me of another number 18, Jeremy Maclin, a little bit.
Sure.
With a lot of speed, a lot of ability to catch the ball with the yak and everything. He reminds me a lot of that, but also with the injuries. I think right now, I have no problem with it coming back. If it was a knee or an ankle, I definitely would be very worried about him coming back and just say, hey, you know what, wait till after the bye, see what happens there, and get him back for the Giants game. But when it comes to the UCL tear and the thumb and everything, I mean, I think especially for where the injury occurred and basically what he's done, I think I have no problem with him coming back right now. And I think right now is a good time for him to do that, being that you don't have Deshaun Jackson anymore because of his fractured ankle. I think that you're gonna need somebody to go ahead and be another big play threat. I mean, John Hightower has done well, and pretty much when he runs that 9 route, that go route, he looks like he's definitely improving. I'll give him credit for that. But when it comes to another guy that go ahead can run like that post, that can run that crossing route, that can run to be a threat to run those end arounds, to do all that stuff that we saw Jackson do against the Giants, I think Reagor is more suited to do that. I think he can do a very good job in. With the thumb, as opposed to, like I said earlier, with the thumb opposed to being an ankle, I can see him going ahead and being okay. And I have no problem with this situation. Now, would you go ahead and keep him out till you saw the Giants, or especially with all the other receivers you have, or would you throw him in there?
No, I'd throw him out there. I think there's some concern about him returning punts. And as we've learned, Deshaun Jackson wanted to be out there on that punt return. It was obviously a freak accident because there was a late hit. It wasn't because he went out there. You can't really put that on the coaching staff, etc. I wouldn't put him on necessarily a pitch count, but I would hold off on having him return punts just because we saw him muff some punts during camp. And if his thumb's still healing or he's still kind of getting used to the game speed, you don't want to risk getting muff punts. That's my one concern. But as far as wide receiver goes, I have absolutely no problem playing him, especially against this secondary who will be nowhere close to his thumbs. If you've watched them play, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, I mean, look, I'd play him. Alshon Jeffrey is still sidelined. Go figure. And frankly, look, I've been all play the young kids. Look, you've got Fulgham, who's going to be your X. You've got Ward, who's your established slot. I said schlot, but slot. And then I think, look, you're working Reagor back in. You can alternate between Hightower and Reagor and kind of do that. And then you still have your Quez Watkins and you have J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. I would keep 6 wide receivers active for this game. Last week, Quez Watkins was inactive. I just think from an injury risk scenario, you want to be able to have as many guys as possible. I would also go really heavy on offensive line depth, even at the expense of some other positions, just because Jason Peters, again, is a 50-50 shot of completing a game. So with some of these guys coming back, it's important to have that kind of excess. Well, I guess you've got Hakeem Butler, so I guess you don't need necessarily the 6 wide receivers out there. But anyway, yeah, I've got no problem with Reagor. What's your starting wide receiver group? Is it
For
is
me,
yeah.
I go Fulgham, Reagor in the slot. No, Fogel, Reagor, Ward. Those would be the three I would go with if I'm going 11 personnel. And the one person I would love to see, I know it's going to be tough for that one. I want to see Watkins. I want to see Watkins there. I just want to see what is able to do because he hasn't had a ball targeted to him yet this year, and I kind of want to see. And basically, when I've gone back and looked at film, I don't think it's a separation thing. I don't think he's having an issue. I just don't think he's gotten the. It's been circumstance, but I really want to see what this kid can do. I mean, he can fly, but I would love to see him be included in that rotation. Or if the Eagles even go empty and go 5 wides, I would love to see him in there. But circumstance hasn't done that. But I would, at least if I'm going to start a crew, I would go Fulgham, I go Ward, and I go Reagor, and say, hey, you know what? Try to stop from there on out, and then have Goedert in the middle at tight end. That's the way I would go.
I don't know if I'm putting Goedert out there this week. I don't think that there's a need for it with the way Richard Rodgers is playing. I think Jason Crooms, whatever, but I think you're going to play a lot of empty personnel where you're looking at a lot of 10 personnel with one running back there and 4 wide receivers. I just think that's the strength of this team, especially if you get Reagor out there and you can have Hightower too. You put Reagor and Ward in the slot with Hightower and Fulgham on the outside, or you put Reagor and Hightower on the outside and put Fulgham and Ward in the slot. I just think that's deadly, especially with how terrible the secondary is. I just think that that's really interesting. But I keep getting ahead of myself with talking about Dallas. It is Dallas week, so it's obviously on the brain. But before we get into our preview, let's talk about the trade deadline, okay? The other day I put out 5 potential trades that the Eagles could make as both buyers and sellers. It seemed to get a lot of really positive feedback. So let's kind of go over those. And I'm going to pitch these 5 trades to you, and you're going to tell me which one you would go with. Okay.
Okay. Right.
Let me pull this up.
And while you're doing that, I'm going to get my GM cap on right now. I'll get my GM coffee right now. I'll get my cell phone waiting for calls for the other people waiting to go ahead at that. So,
all right, Howie. All right. So the first one, so I'm going to make my case, and what the game we're going to play is buy or sell. Okay. I'm going to pitch you each one, and eventually we're going to get down to a couple of sells. We're going to get down to a couple of buys, and we're going to say which one do you like the most. Okay. So the first trade I'm proposing is wide receiver Alshon Jeffrey and a 2021 5th round pick to the Packers for a 2021 6th round pick and a conditional 22 7th round pick. Now, my logic here is, look, the Packers are going to have to take on Alshon Jeffrey's salary. They're going to get him off the books. The Eagles want to get rid of him. Everyone knows it. If they are shopping him, in fact, as it's been reported countless times. So you're sending a better pick to swap picks, but you're not losing a pick. And then on top of that, you're getting a conditional pick where if Jeffrey is on the roster come the start of the league year, you're getting a 7th round pick. So technically you're getting 2 picks for 1 in Jeffrey. Look, this is all nonsense and in the Wolf of Wall Street, when Matt McConaughey's talking to Leo about like fake money, and he's like Fugazi, it's like that's what this is. Who cares, right? You're trading a 5th round pick for a 6th round pick. The Eagles have 2 5th round picks this upcoming. They don't have their 4th round pick, so you're essentially getting a 6th for an extra 5th. You're also going to already have 3 compensatory picks as long as the Dolphins don't cut Jordan Howard. So I think this is a win-win for both teams. I can tell you for a fact that the Packers are looking for wide receiver talent. They have made calls. They're looking for pass catchers for Aaron Rodgers. This is a thing. Are you buying or selling? If you're the Eagles, sorry.
If I'm the Eagles, I'm selling. I don't like that. Personally, I'm not a big fan of that one. We went at length of it last week. I still think Alshon can come back and be a viable member of this receiving core. I think, and especially for 6, if it was the NBA, I think, yeah, it'll be a good thing because you're getting rid of salary, but this is still think you can get rid of salary next year as well, too. And if right now, I might as well go ahead and see what I can get out performance-wise out of Jeffrey later on. In the 6th and 7th, I mean, looking back, I know you gotten Two Hill out of it, but he's no longer here with it. You've gotten some other guys. With
your guy Quez Watkins is a 6th-round pick.
Yeah, but how many times? I don't want to make this a whole Howie thing or anything else, but how many times have a lot of those picks stuck around or been impact players within the last couple of years? And I know you can use them as
Kelsey. Jason Kelsey.
Yeah, that was back when. Heck, I had hair back when Jason Kelsey was elected. But
remember our 20s? Remember those?
Oh, Dave? The golden years. Yeah. I remember when we actually had the iPods. Yeah, I remember stuff like that. But I wouldn't do that deal right now. 6th and 7th. Now, if somehow a 4th came up, I'd seriously consider it because you're looking at a pick probably in the 120s, possibly. Yeah, I'd seriously consider it. But if for 6th and 7th, I'd sell.
All right, next deal. JJ Arcega-Whiteside in a 2021 6th.
Bye. Oh, sorry.
So JJ Arcega-Whiteside in a 2021 6th-round pick to the Jets for linebacker Avery Williamson and a 2021 7th-round pick. So you're swapping late-round picks. Here's why it makes sense for the Jets. Now, Joe Douglas, the GM of the Jets, was with the Eagles when they drafted J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. There's some logic to link them together and think that he liked that type of player because he also drafted Denzel Mims, who, while he was way more athletic than Arcega-Whiteside, has a similar game style. He's going to go up and get it. He's going to use his big body to box out, corners and safeties. The Jets desperately need wide receiver help on the outside. He would come in and be able to play a little bit. Remember, Joe Douglas is the same guy who brought in Josh Adams, who, while he led the Eagles in rushing yards in 2018, he's also not very good. So, we've been waiting for Joe Douglas to make a trade with Howie Roseman for a year and a half, 2 years now. So this made a lot of sense. There's also been rumors out there that the Eagles are looking into linebacker help. Avery Williamson, while he has a $2.75 million salary, it would be prorated to the Eagles at about $1.5 million at this point. He's a veteran. He's played in the 3-4. He's played in the 4-3. He could be a really good middle linebacker. If you remember back in the day where the Eagles traded Brandon Gibson, who was a 6th-round pick, along with a draft pick to the St. Louis Rams for Will Witherspoon. Will Witherspoon came in and had an amazing game against the Redskins. He was kind of an afterthought the rest of the season, but at least you had a veteran linebacker who could play, had experience. Williamson is in the final year of his deal, so he won't affect next year's cap other than your rollover. But really, when you're trading Arcega-Whiteside for him, it's $1 million that you're losing out on. But what are you thinking about that trade?
Well, I'd definitely buy that. I'd heavily buy that. And I know I was joking around earlier when it came to JJ Arcega-Whiteside, but I think it helps out both teams. I think the Jets I know they got Mims coming back, but I think Arcega-Whiteside, maybe a fresh start, does him well. And when it comes to Williamson, I definitely think he can help this linebacker core. I think he can go ahead, even if you moved him to the middle and Edwards maybe to the strong side, or maybe you have him go out to the outside backer and you keep Gary because the team loves Gary. So I wouldn't be opposed to that deal one bit. And I think the key thing you said was the money. I think especially with $1.25 million, I think the move that the team made to go ahead and switch Fletcher Cox's contract to a bonus to free up about $5 million, I think that definitely would help us out. I'd probably say if they made a move, if anybody costs $3 million or less for the rest of the year, I'd say go for it. And especially as a position of need, and you're getting that veteran presence in that room, especially I think Williams could help out for the remainder of the year, help out those other young linebackers and help them see some things as well too that linebacker coach Ken Joel can help out as well too. So I definitely would buy heavily on that trade.
All right, so the next one, a conditional 2021 7th-round pick to the Miami Dolphins for Jordan Howard. Now, the conditions of the 7th-round pick, the Dolphins would only get a 7th-round pick if Howard were to rush for 300 yards in the second half of the season, or the Eagles were to win a playoff game. How are you feeling about that? So basically, it's a flyer. Look, Howard's already down to $1.1 million on his salary. He does have a second year at around $5 million, but there's no guarantees there. You can cut him. He's basically getting you through the second half of the season. He knows the system. He's already shown that he can be a very good complement to Miles Sanders. I think the Dolphins immediately regretted making this move. I can tell you that I've been told by multiple sources that he is available on the trade block. He's been inactive the past 2 games. It just kind of seems like a move that Howie Roseman would make, as we've seen with T.Y. McGill and Jason Peters, and bringing a lot of guys back who know the system in this COVID era.
I actually would buy on that. I seriously would buy. I think when you look at the production you're getting out of your backup running backs. I mean, Boston Scott did have a good game last game against the Giants, and I think you do that. I think Corey Clement, I thought he would have a little bit more production than what he's shown, and been a little bit better than what he's shown so far this season. So I'm a little disappointed in him. And then you have Jason Huntley, who showed a little bit, but basically he looks like Boston Scott version 2.0. So I think you do need that running back that's going to be able to go in around the fourth quarter if you're up on the lead, especially late in the year. You know how it gets around Philadelphia. It gets really cold. You're going to have to go ahead and you just want to finally finish a team off. You're going to need to run the ball, pound the ball. I think Howard can do that. So with a conditional 7th round pick, I think that with those conditions, I think that the Eagles will be giving up that 7th round pick, but compensatory wise, I think they'll be getting one back. So it's just basically, I think it's going to be a wash. So I'd say go for it. I definitely will buy on that.
All right. I'm going to speed through these last 2 because we do need to get into a preview, but I have the Eagles either trading a 2021 5th round pick for the Patriots cornerback J.C. Jackson or the Lions running back Kerryon Johnson. Now, the idea with Jackson is he's the Patriots number 3 corner. He's going to be a restricted free agent coming up. He's a former undrafted free agent, so if the Patriots give him an original round tender, nobody's going to they'll only have the right of first refusal there. Might as well get a 5th round pick out of it. He's got 3 interceptions on the season, good size at 6'1" and 198 pounds. I think we've kind of lightly glossed over the fact that Avonte Maddox has been very up and down when he's been healthy on the outside. I think the size differentials cause issues when Maddox has been on the field. And then kind of the same logic with Howard, with Kerryon Johnson. Johnson's still on the 3rd year of his rookie deal. He's only 23 years old. The Lions have buried him behind Adrian Peterson. They selected DeAndre Swift in the 2nd round, and now Bo Scarborough is coming off injured reserve. Kerryon Johnson's a guy who's got a good name. He's got some good upside, and he can be around for the second half of the season and beyond. Very cheap $1 million salary next year. If you're trying to get a guy who's going to complement Miles Sanders, who has the ability to start if Miles Sanders is out of the lineup, I think trading a 5th round pick for Kerryon Johnson is an absolute home run. What do you think about those 2 trades?
This is going to sound weird, but I'm definitely buying on the Jackson trade. I think the Nickel Roby-Coleman hasn't been playing well overall, and I think you definitely need to go ahead and get having another 3rd corner in here, like Jackson. I think would do a lot better and help this defense out way more. I'm actually going to sell on the Kerryon Johnson, even though it does sound on paper. I'd rather have Howard coming in here and a guy who's already familiar with this system instead of having to wait for Johnson for a couple of weeks to see if you can go ahead and work him in there. And I would definitely the Jackson. I think you need a cornerback more than you need a running back. But so I buy on Jackson. I'd sell on Kerryon Johnson.
Okay, so you bought on J.C. Jackson, you bought on Jordan Howard, and then you bought on Avery Williamson. You like old guys. Which of the 3 deals do you think is the most beneficial for the Eagles at this point?
I think the Avery Williamson deal will definitely be more beneficial just because not only does it have an impact on your current roster as of right now, I think it helps you out a little bit more in the future when it comes to the intangibles part of the experience asset and teaching those linebackers. But then also I think when it comes to the cap and the salary cap money, it won't cost you way too much. And you can still have a decent amount to roll over from to alleviate some of that cap issues you have in next year in 2021. So the Williamson's trade, I think, will be the premium right there.
All right, cool. I'm all on board on the Williamson trade as well. My runner-up would be the J.C. Jackson trade. I really like the Kerryon Johnson trade, but yeah, I mean, I agree. I think the Williamson trade is the most ideal move. It's the best short-term move because that's what you really got to look at. Short-term, long-term. It's not affecting you long-term, but short-term, it could be pretty beneficial. So let's get into our preview briefly. Look, the Cowboys offense has been kind of a mess since Dak Prescott left, or not left, but suffered a season-ending ankle injury, had to have surgery. I think Dak Prescott should win the MVP award because if you look at this offense, when he's not in it, they are just terrible. I think without a doubt, Carson Wentz is the best quarterback in the division, whether you want to debate him and Dak, whatever. But at this point, he is the best quarterback in the division. Andy Dalton suffered a head injury. He's in the concussion protocol. He hasn't been cleared as of Thursday. So right now you're looking at Ben DiNucci, the former James Madison / Pittsburgh quarterback, who was the 7th round pick. He's a rookie. He made, I think, like 3 throws in that game against Washington where the Cowboys were blown out. We don't really know a ton about him from an NFL standpoint. But overall, I mean, this has the makings of a potential Jets game last year where you had Luke Falk essentially like out there just getting abused by Brandon Graham and Josh Sweat and Fletcher Cox. What's your take on the quarterback position for the Cowboys?
I think if you always fear what you don't know. And I think DiNucci does that. But the one thing I will say, like, I found like I try to look for random clips about him, and it's rough. He reminds me of a little bit taller Baker Mayfield. He really does, because the one thing you'll see is, and he showed a little bit in that Washington game. He's able to go ahead and elude pass. He's able to elude the rush. And I'm not saying he's going to be like a Lamar Jackson where all of a sudden you see him speeding down, but he's elusive enough to escape pressure. And he also can throw the ball, and looking at some of the James Madison throw, he can also throw the ball deep downfield. Now, granted, that was FCS level play, and not knocking FCS. I think that's basically FBS is a little bit better, but I think he could be the one thing the Eagles going to have to do is they're going to have to make sure not only put pressure over him and confuse him, they're going to have to make sure they can contain him, because if he breaks the pocket and he's able to use his athletic ability, and then you have a guy like, say, Michael Gallup, and no, he's not having his best season, but a guy like Michael Gallup just breaking free when the Eagles are trying to chase down DiNucci, that could be a problem. I really think that could be a problem. So I think it won't be as bad. I don't think he's going to light it up, but I think he could be annoying just enough to keep this game going on for the Eagles defense. And you sure hope he doesn't turn into Joe Webb overnight. You sure hope he doesn't do that.
I think that's the concern, right? Because the Cowboys do still have Ezekiel Elliott, who's slumping hard this year. And they do have Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, and as you mentioned, Michael Gallup. Their offensive line is just as banged up as the Eagles. Their only starter, who's typically in the lineup, is Connor Williams. I think this could be a banner day for the defensive line. It's just not a good offensive line right now. If you had to have one offensive starter on your offensive line who's typically there, you'd almost definitely pick Jason Kelce over Connor Williams. And look, I think this is going to be the defensive tackle unit is, if Malik Jackson's able to play in this game, pray for Ben DiNucci. Pray for that man, because inside you're going to have a lot of really great matchups. You're not facing Travis Frederick, right? Travis. Yeah. Am I like my brain? I just had a brain fart.
No, you could.
You're not facing off against the normal great offensive line here. I think the edge rushers are going to have a really good time against these replacement tackles. I think Brandon Graham is a top 5 defensive end in the league this year from a run stopping standpoint, from a pass rushing standpoint. He's on pace for 13.5 sacks this season. He's never eclipsed 10 before. I think he gets at least 2 sacks in this game. And then, look, the wide receivers against the corners that's the matchup, right? At least from a defensive standpoint. Darius Slay has done very well against Amari Cooper in the past. I think if he can take away Amari Cooper, you're looking at CeeDee Lamb versus Crayvon LeBlanc, and you're looking at Avonte Maddox versus Michael Gallup. Now, Avonte Maddox has the speed to run with Gallup. That said, he's missed he played like 4 snaps against the Giants, an emergency situation. And outside of that, he missed 3 games. So, he's going to kind of have to get his legs under him, literally and figuratively. So that'll be something to watch. But I think that's actually an okay matchup. The concern I have is CD Lamb versus Craven LeBlanc, who has been up and down in the slot. I would not put Nickel Roby-Coleman out there as the matchup. He just can't tackle. His effort has been just based on tape. I'd almost feel better with Craig James out there. So where are you at from the passing standpoint? I know DiNucci's probably going to have a ton of pressure in his face, but the Cowboys, especially these wide receivers, can catch and run. Where are you at with that?
Well, I think that in order to go ahead and get that passing unit, they're going to have to feed it to Ezekiel Elliott. I think that's the best way they're going to have to. I think that's the best way the Cowboys are going to have to win. You run the ball with Ezekiel Elliott, try to soften that pass rush and concentrate, and then go to the play action pass and go ahead and try to suck the Rodney McLeod and these Eagles linebackers up. So you go ahead and you try to go either in the middle and attack it with the tight ends, or you go ahead and attack it with CeeDee Lamb across like on a post and stuff like that. I think that's where I'm a little worried at when it comes to with this Eagles defense. You're trying to cover that, but if they want to go ahead and keep DiNucci upright, they're going to have to try stuff like that, like draws and everything else. So that's where I'm worried at. If the Cowboys are able to go ahead and establish that run, the Eagles start to sell out to try to stop the run, then the Cowboys go play action off that. That's where I'm worried at on there. Now. Well, so you go.
Oh, sorry. And to counter that, Jim Schwartz's defense is based on stopping the run, and they're likely to have TJ Edwards, their best run-stopping linebacker, in the lineup this week. He's coming back from a hamstring injury. It should be noted that Nate Gary missed Wednesday's practice with an ankle injury. If he's unable to go, you're looking at a starting lineup of TJ Edwards, Duke Riley, and Alex Singleton. Alex Singleton did very well against the run against the Giants. So I wonder, how they arrange their nickel group, because TJ Edwards really doesn't perform all that terrific in passing situations. But like I said, the best way to counter that is to have your best run-stopping linebackers out there. Jim Schwartz is going to have to have a lot of discipline in his play calling. I don't think this team's ever going to sell out for the run, because they're built to stop the run first and foremost. So I think that's the one thing they have going for them. But go on.
Oh, I was going to ask you, like when you're looking at this Cowboys defense, how are you going? I mean, there's so many different ways. I mean, they're just bad, especially when it comes to the scoring defense. They're on pace to be one of the worst defenses of all time. I mean, how are you with the Eagles, the way they're currently constructed and interest? How are you attacking them?
Well, I'm doing the exact opposite of the game plan for the Cowboys, because I agree with you. They have to establish Ezekiel Elliott. But if you're the Eagles, the best defense for the Cowboys offense is to get a nice lead, force them to move away from the run, make them one-dimensional. And I think that's what Doug Peterson will look to do, especially with Jalen Reagor back in the lineup. You can attack them downfield with John Hightower. John Hightower's got, after 2 back-to-back 50 or yards or more catches, defenses are going to have to acknowledge that he can actually get downfield. Then you have Jalen Reagor out there, who had a 55-yard catch in week 1. Look, those guys can burn down the field. And I think that's going to be interesting from some safety help. Like, look, if Dallas Goedert's in this game, safeties are going to be, preoccupied to begin with. But if he's back in the game and Reagor's back in the game, I don't know what this secondary can really do, right? I think Travis Fulgham's going to get at least 12 targets in this game. I think he's going to have a game like 8 catches for 80 and a touchdown. I just think, look, if you don't have Miles Sanders in this game, which you probably don't, you're going to probably be heaving the ball quite a bit. You're not going to be one-dimensional. They're going to still have to run with Boston Scott and use screens as part of the running game. But my thought process is, that first drive of the game, one of your first 3 plays should be a 9 route by John Hightower or Jalen Reagor. Even if it doesn't work, you let the defense know, hey, this is what we can do. This is how we can push the ball downfield. Fulgham's going to have to be good off the bat. He should be able to, based on what I've seen from this secondary. Look, the Cowboys have some decent linebackers. They've got some good pass rushers. Since you're going to be passing the ball a lot, I would presume Boston Scott the key is for Boston Scott and Corey Clement to be much improved in the pass protection game, because if Carson Wentz can't get off these long throws, this game's going to come down to the wire. They need to start off strong. They need to push the ball downfield, and not that the running game will be an afterthought, but it will be a complementary piece of this puzzle for the Eagles, because frankly, the Cowboys secondary is atrocious. I'm not afraid of making mistakes here. This is a game where I say, Carson, air out the ball. You can be smart, but also be aggressive. Push this ball downfield. Let's work Travis Fulgham. Richard Rodgers has proven that he can catch the ball. And I'll tell you this. This is the game where you really unleash Jalen Hurts, in my opinion, as a runner. You saw a little bit of it against the Giants, but without Miles Sanders, you need somebody who can be dynamic and pick up dynamic plays with their feet. And I think that's what Hurts can do. I'm lining him up in the backfield with Carson Wentz. I'm doing read options. I'm not getting too cute. I want this kid to run. And then just when the Cowboys think like, oh, well, they're just using him to complement the running game, you throw that football. This will be the game that Jalen Hurts scores his first touchdown as an NFL player. I would almost guarantee it at this point.
The guarantee.
I said almost guarantee. Don't hold me to it. No, but I think this is the game where you see Jalen Hurts on the field for 10 to 12 plays. Like, it's the right thing to do, especially going into the bye week, because you want other teams to see this and say, well, wow, not only do we have to worry about this kid on the run and the threat of the pass, but we also know he can pass the football. Like, that's the thing. He's thrown the football once. You know he can kind of throw, but do you know he can make consistent throws? Do you know if he can make different throws? I mean, he threw down the seam to Richard Rodgers, in tempo. But, like, can this kid come in on 2nd and 5 and complete a 6-yard crossing route? Like, what can this kid do in the open field? We've talked about him in the red zone. You obviously have to worry about him there. But now I got to worry about this kid in between the 20s. That's scary. And you're not taking Carson Wentz out of the game. Carson seems to not favor blocking, but he seems to at least acknowledge it, and he seems to have bought into, at least on the surface, this plan to use Jalen Hurts in the backfield. I just think Jalen Hurts is their most explosive weapon on the ground, and that's kind of your answer to, like, most offenses are using end arounds with their wide receivers. I don't think these wide receivers are good enough to do that outside of Jalen Reagor, and I'm not pushing it with Jalen Reagor's first game back. So I'm using Jalen Hurts as my ace in the hole, I guess, as you would call it, on the ground.
Yeah, I personally, I'm with you. I definitely think he's going to be actually may have a chance for his first touchdown if he gets down. If they decide to, if they try to go ahead and use him in the red zone, I think that he definitely would. When it comes to some of those passes, I'd actually save it just a couple more weeks, because when you have that murderer's row and you start to go against teams like the Seahawks and the Saints, I wait for him. Probably the week before you start playing those guys, I probably show it then to really have them go ahead and start to think a little bit. I'd save some of the passes for then, but I have no problem with them go ahead and using him as a runner and showcasing that one too. I know it's gotten kind of stale at times, because you think like, okay, Jalen Hurts, oh, here comes the read option, or here comes zone read, stuff like that. But I think right now when it comes to the passes, I'd save them just a little bit for some of those other games to really throw those teams off for a loop. But I definitely think that was a good idea.
All right, so let's kind of get into our predictions. I've got the Eagles winning 27-17. I don't care who's at quarterback for Dallas. I think the Eagles start off strong. I think there's a lull where maybe there's a pick six or a fumble recovery in Eagles territory that gets the Cowboys on the board. They go into halftime at like a 13-7 mark. And then the Eagles eventually pull away in the fourth quarter, because apparently Carson Wentz has to make everything interesting for us. So I think when you look at this group, I think a 14-10 second half kind of score makes sense. So I'm going to go 27-17.
Ooh, that's not bad. I actually think it's going to be a lot closer, because the reason why I think it's going to be closer is the Cowboys released a bunch of veteran players, including Dontari Poe. And I think they're trying to send a message with that. Also, everybody in the country heard Mike McCarthy go ahead and call out his players for not go ahead and sticking up for Andy Dalton. And I think when you couple those two events, I think the Cowboys actually might get up and add that it's a division game as well too. And they're not completely out of it. I think the Cowboys are actually going to be up for this game, especially Sunday night football too. And Sunday night. So I think the Cowboys are going to be up for a game, and I think it's going to be very close for a long time. I think even all the way up to the fourth quarter, midway through the fourth quarter. I actually have the Eagles winning 20-17, but it's going to be really. It's not going to be a hey, you know what? This game's over by halftime. I think go ahead and get some rest game. I think it's going to go down right to the last minute.
If the Eagles only score 20 points against this defense, who cares if they win the division? Yeah, frankly. So, I mean, look, for reference, the Cowboys are giving up 34, I think it's like 34.7 points per game. The only reason why the Redskins weren't like absolutely bullying them is because the Cowboys had 3 points and they could, take it easy. But that would be bad.
We also hope this team wouldn't tie the Cincinnati Bengals either.
Right. No, you're right. So, guys, just remember, you can sign up for Eagles Extra at NJ.com/text. You'll get stuff straight to your phone. We'll give you some commentary during the game. It's the first 2 weeks are free. Also, make sure to download us wherever you can download podcasts. I think that'll be, very, very nice for your weekly listening privileges. As I stumble through my words in my brain, I don't know. I think I've had too much coffee this morning. Anyway,
we almost went an hour, man. This is
this is definitely a record for us. But I think it is one of the longer podcasts we've done. Everybody knows my attention span only goes for 42 minutes. So we've kind of just gone above the grain there. But for Chris, I'm Mike. Thanks for listening to the No Huddle Show podcast. We will have a recap of Sunday's game on Monday heading into the bye. We'll also talk about where the outlook is for the bye moving forward, who the biggest threats are for this NFC East crown. I think right now Washington is the only legitimate threat for the Eagles. But that may change after a weekend of action. So we will talk to you on Monday. Have a great weekend. Looking forward to chatting some Eagles with you in a couple of days.
Acast powers some of the world's best podcasts. Here's a show we recommend.
This spooky season, have a listen to Let's Talk About Myths, Baby, a podcast about Greek mythology that tells it honestly and often with a lot of gore, at least when it comes to these spooky season episodes. Every week in October, I have released a new episode with various levels of spooky in Greek mythology. There are ancient stories of haunted houses, ghosts, werewolves, general tragedy, and even a very bloody tree. Greek mythology has a little something for everyone, especially when it comes to spooky season. So listen to Let's Talk About Myths, Baby, every week wherever you get your podcasts.
Acast recommends.